Chapter 27. The Sea of Uman. I had hoped to experience the Sea of Uman for the first time in all of its bespoken glory. The captain had told me of its expansive captivation, reaching for the horizon in all directions and you reaching for it, groping about with your eyes that which appears limitless, cupping with your hands for examination that which may never be scooped and examined wholly, minding that the depth is said to be greater than the length and the width. How big is big? How grand is grand? It is all relative, isn't it? He was often romanticizing its compelling infinitude, though in all of his intimately brushed stories he began them each by painting this silky depiction of saws spilling forth into it, making gold that which is clear and azure. Alas, there is a tragic absence of this collaboration between light and sea, between warmth and coolness, yellow and blue, with the green sky as their sole intermediary, passing between those two their love letters written in the elements. Reflecting upon the grime and murk we had crawled through to get here, I ought not to lament or grumble. At the very least there is a wondrous sensation entwined with both sublimity and disquiet, when considering that we haven't the most minute inkling of what variety of beasts maneuver about beneath us. To my delight at the sea, these waters move, unlike those of the ominously still swamps. And of course, neckerchief aren't emerging from pools of blood, thus I cannot bemoan our present experience. Leaving Amharam to his own sordid doings haunts me. This among many things. I still wonder about Corvana on occasion. I worry about her, but for reasons both known and unknown to myself. Predominantly the latter. She's crossed into my conscience more times than I'd desire to admit. What is her importance to me? Whatsoever the logic, it evades me like a mischievous apparition whose sole aim is to perplex those it plagues, and only for the sake of its own amusement. As of late, I've been retracing my memories against Hakor as well. Though I am late in this reservation, I find it odd how simply he was defeated in the end. At the moment of his execution, I did not question it. Yet, as of recent, it has invaded with full cavalry my conscience. He had exhibited enough strength in our duel for me to suppose, with evidence, that he could have broken Saba's hold on him. The zombie wolf must have ceded us that fight, and as a consequence, the fan. But for what purpose and to what end? Lastly, and doubly, on the issue of Amharam, he knew how strong we were, yet claimed we were not mature enough. Does he just see us as a premium meal that he's saving for last? Or does he have ulterior motives? Yet again I find myself at a mental crossroad, oblivious to the reality around me, residing entirely in my head, contemplating and speculating, wondering and pondering. If it were not for Saba, I would have wandered aimlessly. He commandeered this insalubrious boat for us, an occurrence that I can barely recollect. There must have been some semblance of a sort of amnesiac blood command conducted by Amharam, or a pheromonal release from the Diursa itself that has hindered my memory to this extent.
Are you gonna mope around the entire way to the island? It's a pitiful sight.
Saba scoffs at me. Is this your way of showing your endearment, and that you care that I mope to begin with? I muster what little comedic relief I have to spare. He snarls at me. You're right. I am sorry. I appreciate your assuming stewardship of the past few days. I shall make an effort to be more present from here forth. I splash some of the Uman's cold waters against my face in an attempt to start myself awake. The salty tinge of the air around us is new to me. This is a detail from the captain that still holds true. The breeze is cool. The waves are subtle and undisturbed. Hopefully they stay as such. Why do we not just fly over to the island? This thought just occurred to me. We can get there much sooner if we do so. Saba only needs a solid platform to control, and I have my Draken form.
Scorch zones are far too violent to fly near, and we ought to avoid bringing any unwanted attention to us.
Is the island inhabited? I ask.
Not that I am aware of. It is simply not a risk I'm willing to take. We've had more than enough detours and obstacles impeding our journey thus far.
We have both been mentally worn thin. I checked out for a while, leaving vacant my duty of awareness, but Saba muscled through and along. This is what it means to be of the Tamas warrior race, or so what of it I may fathom as a curious onlooker. Many of them maintain a bearing of the strength required to clash constantly, and the mental endurance to live with a lifestyle accompanied by that sort of conflict and blood. Thus is the unrelenting, might-applauded, and meritorious culture of our co-inheritors of Oma. Up ahead, not too far in the distance, we spot a storm brewing. That cloud does not appear to be very welcoming. I look to Saba for his essay of the forging sky before us.
Compared to the one your captain stirred up, this ought not alarm you.
Saba lays forth good reason, but there's more than just the surrounding nature's discharging from within it. And though this cloud is not as intimidating as Indra's, insofar as violence is the concern, it is far more spacious and outreaching. Something, or someone, concocted that nimbus, and Saba, due to no fault of his own, cannot feel this. As we draw near to the rioting skies, I make better sense of the storm, now pouring down upon us. It appears that the cool ocean draft meets violently with the far-off fiery air of the scorch zone. This is our culprit. The ohm is natural, despite my initial audit. However, it is very unlike that of the Koths. The forces here are chaotic. I yell over the drumming drops. I wonder if Saba can feel just how static the atmosphere is. Our little boat rocks and sways and lifts and plunges. The foam of the raging sea breaks into our dinghy, filling our nostrils and then again our maws when we gasp for the little air available to us between the leaping waves. Saba dips his hand into the tumultuous sea and decrees it, by his ability, to form an aquatic roof and barrier overhead and around us. Astonishing. He can even manipulate the vibrations and shape of water. The hydrodome shields us against the elements well, keeping both the cream of the sea and the pummeling of the rain from us. We know not to fight fire with fire, but you figured water against water rather effectively. I nod and prod at him. Unbelievably, he lets out the faintest of chuckles. It was ever so scant, yet it was unmistakably thus. Did you truly laugh at my jest just now? That's relieving. A sense of accomplishment overcomes me.
Do not dig too far into it, En.
He flares his nostrils in disapproval, ashamed that I caught him in the act. Whoa! You called me by my name again! I clench my fist, firm in my double back-to-back victory. His heated embarrassment carries his glowering eyes from me. After some days, a small collection of isles appear to our left, revealing to us by drifting slivers of limpidity from within a staying mist. From them comes a faint and stifled tune. It is one without words, growing in its volume as we sail past. The music cries in a beautiful wail, gradually more consistent and smooth the longer it plays. Ever so suddenly, and ever so eloquently, bursts of sobs and hiccups make their way into its melody. The enticement is wrought into my spirit, and cannot be shed, nor can the sorrow be unfelt. Why, Oma, do you not answer my cry? The tone of the music itself, it plays me this question. I am coaxed for a response which I give no permission to enact, yet I speak it nevertheless and with all of my chest. I know that I grieve, but for what I do not know. I profess to the sea and to whatsoever from within it rings these sounds and beckons me. Then, as though to contrast the melody and yet a strangely complementing fusion, comes an aroma so wonderful that its seduction cannot be denied nor ignored.
Fool! This is clearly a trick. Reclaim yourself, wolf.
Saba's tone is both fierce and crazed. He grips himself internally to fight the condemnation of the song and the allure of the scent, refusing to shed a single tear. Meanwhile, I quiver at the lips, struggling to bank my waters. Does he truly believe this is a trap? It seems the most sincere of things. Something cries for our aid.
Help us, will you not? Graceful traveler, you sob as we do. Why not then come to us? We are so very hungry and in need of rescue. Does our music not please you? Does our scent not invoke your pleasure?
I cannot contend with their pleas. They bring about inside of me a melding of sorrow and desire, and I know not what to do with such a mixture. I'd rather be knocked unconscious now than to continue on without going to them. Just as I prepare to leap from our raft, Saba rises from his ruffled seat with his arms flung towards the isles and his palms facing them. Shortly thereafter, the song is halted. He has turned their melody, along with that bewitching smell, away with his great ability.
You will have to row for the both of us until we've outpaced their reach.
Coming to my senses by the dearth of their song, I do as he deems fit whilst he retains his combative position. He has saved me. Perhaps. Though from what I dare not imagine. The manner in which he was jolted to his senses looks much alike when Fatima intervenes in my behalf with the grace of knowledge or insight. Had someone alerted Saba and shook him of this threat by a similar method? The song of whatsoever is out there, sad and pleasant all at once, baits drifters and passers in by plucking the strings of their grief and blowing the horn of their temptations. It is not by me nor from myself that I am imparted with this lesson, for I caved into the allure. Yet it has fallen down upon me from somewhere up high, and it says, there is a virtue in denying the seductions of the world, and that virtue is abstinence. A steeled virtue that is all but remembered in this present age of indulgence. Now, as the gap between us and those isles is enlarged, my gut hints to me that we have providentially avoided a grave misfortune back there. A misfortune of which the likes of have scarcely been spoken, for I have certainly never heard them uttered. Saba and I have found the better of our common ground upon the sea and through a storm. Remarkably, this sail has been the most effortless part of our journey, aside from the brief persuasion behind that mist. We were in need of this. I needed this. Though the weather has not been preferable, the ocean has soothed me. Here, our voyage comes to an end. As we slip from under another giant tempest and beneath a new grander one, the island we sought is revealed. It meets my sight furiously. An iridescent, rocky tower, erected from the deep sea and shooting into the high empyrean, would do better to describe it than for me to name it a simple island alone. The surrounding sky is a reddish-orange, and the air grows hotter and heavier the nearer we come to it. My lungs are stinging.
Take this,
Saba hands me a rag to tie around my nose and mouth.
and use this when you can no longer breathe the island's air.
He places a condensed ball of spinning wind into my hands. It swirls about the pellucid sphere and is cool to the touch. How is this possible? What is this?
I used my powers to gather fresh oxygen along the way. I could not bring much more because it takes a certain level of preservation to upkeep them, and the strain on my body would keep me from being effective ought we need to engage in combat. Put it to your lips and inhale it if you find yourself without breath.
He truly thought ahead. However, I am suspicious of how it is that he had reconciled that we'd find difficulty in our breathing. He had mentioned before that he had never toured a scorch zone,